How about that? That looks better. Okay, so we're live. We have Tyranids on the mind. Here is a test model of what I've already done for the Tyranids. So the plan is, well, firstly, hi. The plan is this for our Tyranids. So over the next couple of days, for as long as a session as I can manage, I'm going to try and tackle the Leviathan box. This means mainly we're going to be trying to speed paint everything, and it's going to be batch painting everything. It's 47 models. Everything from stuff like the Screamer Killer. Make sure the camera's a little bit. Should have checked that beforehand. So we've got everything from as big as the Screamer Killer to as small as a Neurokin. Obviously, the larger models, the characters like the Tyranid Prime and the Neurotone, which you'll notice is not on a base. He's the only one that's not on a base because the plan is to have him flying rather than on an industrial pipe. We'll all get a little extra detail, but the baseline is going to be something that's going to be pretty quick. I'm not going to be doing basing over this stream. I do have my mate Rob. He is printing all of the bases I need for 2 Leviathan boxes. He's printing out a hollow base like I've done for my Swamp bases video. And the aim will be to try and replicate that for the Tyranid, so maybe add some more colour and variety into it as well. But yeah, the colour scheme we're going for is actually super simple. And shouldn't take that much to get everything running. We've started off, the base colour on here is Nurgling Green. So I've done a primer, a quick coat of Death Guard Green to help the colour set a little better, and then a coat of Nurgling Green over top, just to prep everything for how the stream is going to run, because I can't really use the airbrush at the same time. I don't have, at some point there will be a camera over here that will be able to look down onto the airbrush station. It does need to all get cleaned up as well, but that's something for future streams, not for right now. So everything we're going to do from here on out is going to be done with a brush. So dry brushing for the most part, shades. There will be some traditional brush painting. We're not going to do edge highlights. Or I don't plan on doing edge highlights. Plans do change though, so we'll see how that goes. I do tend to get a little carried away at times. But yeah, might as well get started. So the first part is going to be, and I do have a little box set up over here that I can put stuff that's drying. So as we get going, we're going to start off with some Athenian camo shade, and we're just going to slap this all over the model. We're then going to dry brush it down with some Nurgling Green again, then dry brush with Screaming Skull, which is going to give a really pale look, and then we can get on to adding some extra details in, like, you can't see it really well on here, but around the outside of the limbs, all the joints, I've done a mix of, I've made my own shade of Lamian Medium and the Lupus Pink. I've done that underneath the dry brushing on this model. That's going to go over top of the dry brushing on all of the other models, just so it stands out a little more, and I may need to do a second coat in some sort. I am going to, instead of trying to custom mix every time I need to refill, I'm just going to make the mix in this bottle. Then we've got a consistent mix to go through all of the Tyranid models. So, with all of that out of the way, we can get started. Always make sure the lid is on before you shake. We've seen that mistake happen too many times. So I'm just going to load it up into the pellet here, just to give me a bit more control and to make sure that I don't have the pot sitting open for a long period of time, which would make it, you know, eventually spillable, because at some point open shades always spill. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the wing membranes on this guy. I have thought about doing like the screaming skull or something all over the wing membranes, and then using the same Volupus pink shade just to add some depth to it. I think that's going to work the best. I don't have to worry too much about the carapace, because the carapace is going to be brown. We want to make sure we're getting, for the most part, the entire model. And this one's going to be a pain in the backside to do with the dry brushing in some parts, especially in underneath here. It's going to be really hard to get a brush in there to do a good coat. But as things go, if you can't really get your brush in there, most people aren't really going to see it. So if I miss a couple of details there, it's not going to be the end of the world. Another important part for this shade is that any parts that might not have got the best coverage of the Nurgling Green and Death Guard Green, this, because it's so watery, will help to hide some of that. Because we started with the Vallejo light grey primer through the airbrush. Right. That's the first one onto the storage box. So I do hope everyone's having a good day. Hope is that to try and get all this done, to get all the exoskeleton, I think that's the proper term all Tyranid players use, get all of it finished by the end of today. I don't know how realistic that is. We'll find out soon enough. 47 models with just dry brushing, it shouldn't be too bad. On here and on this Neurotyrant and on the little companions he has, on their tentacles, there's some little round spots that look like little pustules. For those, I'm actually probably just going to put a yellow contrast over top of them in those spots. Again, there's a lot of spots here that it's going to be really hard to make sure we get a dry brush into. As long as we can add some definition one way or another, we should go alright. There's no particular reason I'm doing one thing now and another thing, like one model now and a different model later. Part of the batch painting is we're going to go through all of it, so it won't really matter which models we pick now and which models we pick later. Just all about getting as much paint down as quickly as we can. Stony Camo Shade is one of those I found really underused shades. It's fantastic for this sort of stuff, but a lot of people use Agrax Earth Shade instead over these greens. But I find it shifts a little bit too much towards the brown. Well, for my personal taste, it shifts a little bit too much to the brown. Everyone has their own likes and dislikes when it comes to what colors and shades they're using. I like to try and match my shades to whatever colors I'm doing. So I'll often use Carroburg Crimson over reds and Cassandora yellow over yellow. Sometimes, yes, you do have to drop back and use the Nuln Oil or the Agrax Earthshade, but really great when you can match things, because you don't shift the color as far, but you still add the detailing. One of the big things that I haven't worked out so far is what color I'm going to do the eyes. I do want the eyes to stand out quite a bit, so it's possible that I'm going to do something really bright for them, something that really pops, so maybe a purple or a yellow or something. But again, that's going to be something to work out later. I know it does take a little extra time, you know, opening the pot of shade and emptying it out into the pellet every time, but it saves me so much heartache later when I don't spill the pot. You can see how much definition this adds, and it still looks green. So there's a spot in underneath here. That one's going to get a lot of dosing from the red, the Volupus Pink Wash. So I see that as sort of an exposed section. Just a tiny little bit there, and there. The way everything settles in with this works well. Alright, that's Screamer Killer. Von Ryan's Leapers. The mini Leapers. I think these guys are one of the cooler new models. I do love all of the Tyranid models that came out in the Leviathan box, but these ones just have that little something. Can't really define what it is. They just feel that extra cool. They were a bit of a pain to put together, but they're nice models. And here again you can really see the shade doing work, because that leg looks a little bit plain to start with. But once you add the shade and the definition and everything gets darker in those recesses, you can really start to see the detail that's there. It's a little bit too much there. We can just tap that off with the brush. He goes in the storage. This one has the same problem, so you can see, you know there's detail in there, and you can see it a little bit from the shadow or from the light. But from any distance, it's really hard to pick. So adding the shade there, and then once we do the dry brushing, it's going to help add a lot of life to that. Another spot where we can use the Volupus Pink Wash is going to be around the back of their heads. We see a lot on Tyranid models that towards the back of their head is normally done with a red shade, or even, well, for some color schemes, just a different shade to the base color. We want to follow that on because that again adds a lot of depth and interest. It doesn't take much to power through all of this. Like, it's going to take a lot of time, but it doesn't take a lot of effort. We just have so many models going on that can't help but take a lot of time. And that's going to actually work in our favor, because hopefully, by the time we finish putting the shade on the last models, the first ones should be done. And then we can start the cycle again. If by some chance they're not dry enough when we finish this, then that's going to mean I'm going to have to take a break because I don't have anything else to work on. If that does happen, if something like that happens and I have to take a break during the day, I will put up a new stream as soon as possible. In a couple of hours, I may take a break just for, going and getting lunch. Some cooling there, just tidy that up. Oh, missed a couple of spots as well. Actually in there. Grab all of these. Start working on all of them at once. These are the Barbgaunts. Now, I haven't really looked at their stats. I know they're shooty dudes, which is nice for Tyranid. I do like the idea of a shooty Tyranid army as much as I like the idea of a choppy Tyranid army. I think they were strength 5. If you have the stats, please drop them below in the comments. Yep. That normally doesn't happen until later in the stream when I start dropping models. Ah, well. Yeah. Tyranid, you can have a lot of fun with them because of the living ammunition and stuff like that. It's in the lore. I admittedly don't know a lot about Tyranid lore. I think it's sometimes hard to get involved in lore for the Tyranids because you don't really get the first person sort of information. There's no books written from the perspective of the Tyranids. It's always written from the perspective of someone else who is watching the Tyranids, dealing with the Tyranids, often being eaten by the Tyranids. Again, we can see the ridges underneath here. They're going to work really well for that red wash. I'm just going to refer to it as red wash because otherwise I'm going to keep messing with the name. So it's hard to identify with the Tyranids because they are so different to everything else in 40k. Would be interesting to see an insider perspective of what the hive mind goes through during an invasion, but it would be so damn hard to read and to write because you've got to get into that mindset which is inherently so different from what we are. Writing for Tau, they are still similar to us in that they are a sentient species, so we can relate to that. But what goes through the hive mind during an invasion is almost unknowable. What are the politics? Do the hive fleets have separate hive minds? Do they have a link to each other where they can communicate even though they're not making the decisions with that hive mind? Do hive fleet, Jormungandr stop and have conversations with hive fleet Leviathan about, I'm going here, you should go there? And what level of control does the hive mind have when you get to the smaller creatures like the Barbgaunts and the Termagants and all of that sort of stuff? Is there a point where the Barbgaunts can turn around and say, this is not working, we need a different adaptation to take this on? Or are they completely mindless, and that has to fall down to the more powerful synapse beasts like the neuro tyrants, hive tyrants, and all that sort of stuff. And it's not really something GW will want to go into, I don't think. Because as much as I would find it really cool, as much as there are other people out there that find it really cool, the mystery of the Tyranids is such that it might hurt. Get back in there properly. It might actually hurt the Tyranid lore more than it would be beneficial. You can see on here that I was talking about little balls. Some of them look like they're just extra parts of the carapace. Others are clearly something different. It could be part of how they maintain their ability to hover. It could be just grippy pads to let them wrap around enemies and try to suck their brains out. Should actually, hopefully they do a series of audiobooks about the Leviathan stuff. I know with Indomitus they released a book and then they done the audiobook version, and at the moment I'm having some mental issues where I can't sit and read a book. My brain just isn't processing written words very well because of a lot of stress and stuff going on in my life, which is going to happen when you've got 5 kids at home. So audiobooks have been a great way for me to stay up, well, I wouldn't say up to date with the law, because I'm not getting through enough audiobooks to say I am up to date with the law. I'm only on the 3rd or 4th audiobook that I've ever listened to, which by the way is Carrion Throne. But it does help me feel like I'm staying sort of connected with 40k lore. And then of course there's fantastic, absolutely fantastic YouTube channels that do mostly just lore. So Voldemort, 40k Theories, Tactica Imperialis, I think it is. Luton 09. So they're great to sit down and listen to when I want to, I need that lore fix, but I don't want to spend 10 hours listening to a book. Voldemort's, 20-minute videos are fantastic. Just put on every now and then and chill out and get some lore. And then he turns around and he does his 4-hour, I've compiled everything into one video, and sometimes that's just a bit too much for me. And sometimes that's exactly what I need. Luton does the same. Sometimes these videos are 20 minutes, sometimes they're an hour or two. And it's great because there's times where I want both of those. Next. Hopefully the audio is coming through okay here. It's showing up that it's monitoring okay on my screen, but not wearing headphones means I can't listen to it directly. Unless I want to cause a feedback loop, it's going to cause major issues. Refill again. I do love when I see people that have no idea about how, like, production of the Tyranids started. So I see a lot of people saying, oh, the Tyranids just copied StarCraft. The problem being that Tyranids predate StarCraft by over 10 years, as far as mentions in the lore. I think I was reading earlier, 1987 was the first mention of the Tyranids in the lore. But StarCraft didn't come out until 98 instead of 88. Would have been a hell of a different game if it came out in 1988. So there's no... Like, they've clearly taken inspiration from, you know, aliens and stuff like that. Especially when you look at these guys, they've got that very hunched over bipedal look that you see in some of the aliens from the aliens movies. The xenomorphs, they're the ones. You know, when we refer to aliens in 40k as Xenos, yes, there is a much older meaning to that word, but I feel like some of it definitely comes from the fact that xenomorph is such a pop culture reference to aliens, and they've never been shy about, you know, pop culture references in 40k. One of the quotes in Carrion Throne, I can't remember which one it was, I was listening to it last night on the way home from Melbourne. Like, that's from somewhere else. That is not an original quote, and that's okay. And they even reference it as being an old superstition. Stuff like that, it's set in our universe, in theory. Like, referencing stuff from our universe is fine and keeps in the character of what's going on. We've got 5 more termagants to go after this batch. Then we've got the 10 Neurogons and the one, I suppose you almost call him a sergeant for the squad. I can't remember his name. And then the Psychophage. Oh, and 2 Ripper Swarms. So we're nearly done with the shading process already, because, like I said, we're not going to be spending a lot of time. It's not a super great in-depth paint job we're doing. We're looking to maximize results while minimizing effort. And I think it's worth saying that's the way I do most things when I'm painting. I would love to be able to have the patience to sit down and spend 20 hours on a model and have it be perfect, but it's just not me. I would love to be able to do it. Given that most of my painting is armies rather than individual models, it's not viable for me to do that. I need models finished up in like an hour per model. If I can get it faster than that, even better. My Necrons are only like 15-20 minutes per model, because I found ways to kind of cheat and add extra detail and extra definition without adding too much extra time. Yeah. Adding this shade here, yes, it's a common thing, but it's all about the same sort of style. We're going to add as much definition in as little time as possible. When we do, you know, the carapace later on, it will be about adding maximum definition for minimum time. even when I do basing and stuff like that, yes, I do my basing a little bit differently for the swamp bases, where I'm using the airbrush to do a lot of the work. And I did show in the swamp basing video that you could do it with, you know, dry brushing and stuff instead. But I will be using the airbrush. Adding that extra definition in, well, it looks like it would take a long time, because I'm doing it in batches and not having to change out what paints I'm using through the airbrush. It was actually a pretty quick process. As per usual, you know, waiting for stuff to dry and waiting for resin to cure is always going to take a long time. But that's time that we're not actually spending on the model or on the base. That's time that we've gone and we've gone to bed and we've, you know, made dinner and stuff like that. So we don't have to look at it as time spent on the model, because we're not actively engaging with the model. It would be a whole different story if we were sitting there, you know. I'm lucky I don't have to sit here and hold a UV light over top of the resin to cure it or anything like that, because I've got Australian UV rating. I just sit it on a windowsill. And if I really wanted to go all out, I'd be able to set up a curing station where I could have a set of UV lights up top that are just going to sit there and cure whatever resin comes in underneath them. I could leave them sitting there for an hour. But a windowsill is cheaper and easier. And the UV rating in Australia is high enough that it's going to get the job done normally by the next afternoon. I will probably get, I did fail at using the water gel to do the pools of water on the swamp bases. But I think what I'm going to do is, after I've done the resin, the UV resin cures for the bases, I'll probably just dab some of that on to add some texture to the water, as if there's wind blowing or something. Make sure we don't pull too much of this. Get back on your base. So because I'm doing the swamp bases, I haven't glued these onto their bases because I want to be able to just pop them off. For the Tyranid, I'm going to get some clear plastic rod. I'm going to mount it on that so that it's going to be like a flying base. It's going to be just a little bit higher off the ground than it would be normally, and then I don't have to have the industrial pop. The same sort of thing's going to go if I use this guy in the army, because it's got the industrial pipe and I'm doing a swamp base. I will not be keeping that pipe on there. If I use this guy, I will carefully trim everything away and put him like on a rock or something like that. Something that will match the basing rather than trying to match bases to what's on the model. When I get in 40k, there's probably plenty of swamps with, you know, industrial waste pipes and crap everywhere, but doesn't sort of fit my internal narrative of what the bases should be, and where these Tyranids would be invading. You know, a swamp is full of biomass which the Tyranids need to move on to the next area, to continue their invasion. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Set up a pile of little dudes. Miragons. We have the big brain bug of them all. So around the top of the carapace is the exposed sort of brain area. We're going to do that the same as we've done for the Broodlord, but we're going to do it in a blue. Same for all the exposed brain section on the Neuro Tyrant and his cohort. And it's really simple the way I've done it, so it shouldn't take us a lot of time. Because I just painted it white and then used contrast over top to add the blue. The tiny little limbs on these guys are going to make it a little annoying when I do the red wash over the joints, but I think it should be okay as long as I'm careful. Does mean I'm probably screwed because it requires me to be careful, but you know, we'll get there. Careful is not my strong suit. Look at that. I forgot to move one of the buttons around. So if someone posts in chat, I wouldn't have been able to see. Because for some reason YouTube likes to only show me top instead of show me every message that pops up, because then I can respond to it in decent time. It is nice having the setup out here now. It's a little quieter. I don't have to worry about the missus walking past the camera and getting herself annoyed because she's been seen on the internet. Also means if the kids are home and in bed, I don't have to worry about them coming out and getting stuck on a stream. So it's just generally better, except for, well, the only thing that's really worse is the fact that out here I don't have good heating and cooling. I have a little evaporative cooler, little portable evaporative cooler, and I have a little fan heater. So in summer it's going to get quite hot. In winter it's going to be, well, it's winter now. It's really cold out here. The fan heater does a pretty good job of most of it though. Looking over there, and it does look like the first models are nearly dry enough to go. So we're not going to have to, you know, stop and take an hour break or anything. Have been going for how long so far? Should tell me there. Oh. Yeah, that's all we. Oh, we've been live for 42 minutes. There we go. Yeah. So 42 minutes to, you know, start with the preamble and get into things. That's not bad for 47 models. So we'll finish 47 models within the hour for the shade. And 2 dry brush steps shouldn't take us all that long. I'm not sure whether I'll get through both of the dry brushing steps before lunch. I will try. Alright, last of the shading is this bad boy, the Psychophage. Now he's got a lot of veins and stuff over his body, blood vessels and stuff. So we'll use the red wash around those to help add some detail again. We don't need this to be super dark because we're going to be adding a lot of stuff on it later. Some of the spots in this guy are going to be a little bit rough to try and reach with the dry brush, but it'll be fine. What we don't reach is going to be areas that are almost not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. A little bit more shade, just the last little bit to try and finish up there. Now I'm going to do... I'll wash the tentacles. I'll put the wash over the tentacles. I'm not sure if I'm going to do... like how I'm going to do them. I may just, with the dry brushing and stuff like that, make it so that the tentacles are all the same as the rest of the areas, and then wash them with, well, this is, you know, do it the same as the fleshy areas and then wash it with the red wash to show there's, you know, blood and stuff there flowing through it. Different people have different views on what color Tyranid blood should be. I'm okay with it being red. To me, as the Hive fleet goes through planet to planet, different metals would be used as oxygen carriers, so you know, you might get like a blue-green blood from having copper used as the oxygen carrier in the blood. Whereas on, you know, after you've invaded a red planet like Mars, you're going to have an excess of iron, so being able to use iron in the blood would give it the red tinge. So I don't see why, if someone's done blood blue on one model, doesn't mean everyone should do the blood for Tyranid's blue. Just clean up, because I don't like having shade all over my fingers. Same here. Tried to clean that off last time. Hand sanitizer works great for cleaning off these plastics. It's also cheaper than pure isopropyl alcohol. Pure isopropyl alcohol would be what I would normally use, but I'm running low. I forgot to go to the hardware store. Another sheet of paper. My nose is feeling a little sniffly today. Alright. That's good. Alright. Dry brushing. Oop. I just got these brushes from Kmart. They're all over eye brushes, they're $4 each. They do wear out pretty quickly. Here's one that I've used for a while, but they're perfect for this sort of rough and ready dry brushing. I don't mind spending $4 to paint them. Ooh, there's still a lot of spots of where it's still wet. That's not going to work out well. I was hoping But by the time I got to the back of all these, everything would be ready. So the shade step is going to require a break. So what time is it now? I will reschedule the stream to start up again at 1 o'clock. That'll give me time to have a break. Sitting here for a long time does start hurting my body. So I'll take a break, come back at 1, everything will be dried, so we shouldn't have any issues after that. Well, shouldn't have any issues with waiting to dry after that. When we get into the dry brushing step and stuff like that, we're not going to have to wait at all. Getting 47 models dry brushed, it will almost be guaranteed to be dry by the time I get back to the first one. And because we're only doing 2 dry brushing steps, that's not going to take us too long to get done. So, yeah, I'll take a break now. I'll catch you in 2 hours.